What do you think? Well, what do you know?
Solo, a Star Wars story, is directed by Ron Howard and is a sort of origin story for Han Solo. And if I need to explain who Han Solo is, you're watching the wrong video. It follows Han as he escapes the slums of the planet Corellia, joins the military under the Empire, and ultimately ends up as a smuggler. Yes, all of that is in the trailers. I have to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what this movie was really supposed to be. I get what it ended up being, but I feel like there could have been, or maybe there was at one point, much more to this story than just what we see here. As a result, to me at least, this is the first of the new Star Wars movies that just feels like a cash grab. It doesn't add to the story that we're familiar with in any appreciable way, though it does make me kind of wish there was a Chewbacca movie in the works. And it took events that seemed like they should have been more complicated and just packed them all in there. I feel like I'm being too negative. Let me go ahead and say that I don't think Solo is a bad movie. In actuality, I really enjoyed the ride. That said, I feel like they could have removed any ties to Star Wars and called it The Adventures of Generic Space Cowboy, and it would have been just as good, maybe even better. At least without the Star Wars connection, the whole robot subplot wouldn't have felt so out of place. Solo stars Alden Ehrenreich. Enric. Whatever. As Han Solo. And for what it's worth, he does a pretty good job with the role. It's gotta be tough to step into such an iconic role, so I'm giving him a lot of leeway here. We also get Jonas Sudeikis, probably, reprising his role as Chewie, and Emilia Clarke as the requisite love interest Kira. Han hooks up with a crew of smugglers made up of Beckett, played by Woody Harrelson, Val, played by Thandie Newton, and Rio Durant, who is entirely CG but voiced by Jon Favreau. This group of characters worked really good together, and Durant is by far my favorite of the new characters. There are multiple antagonists in Solo. Not all of them stay antagonists, and not all of them even get screen time. But for the purposes of having someone to call the bad guy, for all the 15 minutes of screen time he gets, we have Dryden Voss, played by Paul Bettany. Bettany is a great actor, and I can see the potential for this character being someone to truly fear, but as I said before, it feels like there was much more to this movie, and whatever they had to flesh out the character of Dryden got lost in the mix. These last two are the standouts of the film, but for very different reasons. Donald Glover plays Lando Calrissian, and while Glover and I may never see eye to eye on politics, the man is amazingly talented, and his portrayal of Lando is arguably perfect. The only thing that mars his character is not actually his fault, but that of the other standout, L337. L3 is voiced by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, is Lando's co-pilot, and is irritating from the moment it shows up. I get giving robots a personality. No one would argue that both C-3PO and even R2-D2, which is basically a cylinder on wheels, both have distinct personalities. I'm just not sure that inserting the personality of an Earth-based 21st century SJW into the context of the Star Wars universe makes any sense. Okay, I guess it does if you're less interested in being consistent in telling a good story and more interested in pandering to the highly vocal minority. Yes, the vocal minority that is already screaming from the rooftops about how amazing it is to have the first female, how dare they assume its gender, robot in Star Wars. I even read an article referring to it as feminist, though the only cause L3 champions in the movie is equal rights for all robots. Not sure how that makes it a feminist, but when it comes to modern third-wave feminism, the logic is not strong with this one. I realize I'm getting off track here, but I read the description of L3 on StarWars.com, and there are two things worth pointing out. First is that L3 is described as a self-made droid. What? Are they suggesting L3 built itself? Does the term irreducible complexity mean anything to these people? Also, the last line of the description says, and I quote, L337's habit of speaking her mind and her relentless advocacy for mechanicals can alienate organic beings. Unquote. Really? So they took a character that was apparently designed with the ability to alienate organic beings and put it in a movie that will be watched by organic beings, not thinking that it might alienate them? Well done, guys. Well done. The story is pretty straightforward and predictable. Seriously, I don't think there was a single thing that happened in this movie that was in the least bit surprising. Everyone played their respective roles really well, but ultimately I think the writing was lacking and it feels very rushed. It's like someone showed up and said, okay, we want to include this, this, and this. Now just come up with a way to tie them together and we have a movie. The director and the actors just did the best with what they were given. As is usually the case with Star Wars movies, Solo is a visual treat. The CGI is spectacular and the practical effects are spot on. Like I said before, it's a fun ride, and at no point does anything, at least from a visual standpoint, take you out of the movie. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. In the end, I can say that I enjoyed Solo, and I feel okay recommending it to others, whether they are fans of Star Wars or not. It is worth seeing in the theater, if only for the visuals, and I'm sure I'll eventually buy it on Blu-ray, if only to round out my Star Wars collection. Though I'm starting to wonder if it's really worth it anymore. I guess that'll do for now. Have you seen Solo, a Star Wars story? Is anyone else starting to get a little burnt out of the whole Star Wars thing? Let me know in the comments, and as always, please like and subscribe. I'll see you back here next week with my review of Action Point starring Johnny Knoxville.